Hi, writers. Welcome to episode 7 of the Working Writer Podcast. I am pretty excited about this one. I'm excited about all of them, actually. But if you listened all the way through to last week's, I have a programming note of significance. When I started this podcast in November of 2020, I had just left a contract, a full-time contract that had been my day job. And while I was looking, I was like, well, I'm going to start my podcast and I'm going to, write my screenplay and work on these novels. And so I got right to work and I stayed really busy and I got the podcast going and I got the screenplay to the halfway point, the novel to the halfway point. My goal was to have them finished before I took another full-time contract. That didn't happen. And I had this major plot twist, minor breakdown right after I released the last episode. And I was gonna just kind of shuffle it under the rug and not talk about it. And then I was like, hella, this is right on point with being a working writer. This is like the thing. What happens when you fail? What happens when you miss your mark? What happens when you don't hit your goal? And so I am excited, and you can, if you're listening, you can hear me smiling. I know you can hear me smiling. Because I did the work and I came through on the other side, and I'm going to make it part of the show today. So tonight. I told you I wasn't going to edit out every little stutter and bumble. So, yeah, I ain't. So this is what happened. When I started, I had this big, hairy, audacious goal to write an ebook to release with each episode. The companion guides pair, they build out the content beyond what I can do in the show. And I wanted 20 podcast episodes and 20 ebooks. I had 20 on the brain because I'm part of this Facebook group called 20 Books to 50K. And there's a big story about why it's called that. You don't necessarily need 20 books to make 50K off of self-published books. But anyway, that's a whole nother tangent. I had it on the brain. And so I came up with this goal and I stated that goal with a lot of convicted intention. And I proceeded. I got my process down. 1 book, 2 book, 3 book. And I knew, because I wasn't the only thing I had going. I had my screenplay, my novels, a full-time job hunt underway, and oh yeah, family. And experience has taught me something that I am pretty hard-headed and forget. I obviously still need experience to teach me this. Real life gets in the way of goal setting. Every time, that's how it goes. And I forget this when I'm mapping out my goals. I sometimes set unrealistic timelines and put unrealistic pressures on myself in order to attain something. Now, I kind of like that I do that because I usually achieve more than I think is possible by setting the bar really high. However, every once in a while, I get in a little snag like happened last week. So, as it's wont to do, real life came barging in. My pace that I had designed for myself was completely attainable. I had the process all figured out. It was working like clockwork, and it had one huge contingency. Nothing could go wrong. As long as the days stayed open and I didn't take a full-time contract and nothing happened in my family or my body or my brain or, anything else that can get us off track, that pace was totally doable. And it worked. It got me through my unemployment time. It got me through some hairy stress with January and the Capitol and politics and all these things. I had my projects to keep me sane, and I just love being busy, and I love making things, and I love progress. And so this really just kept me going, and I'm a big producer. I have a lot of content that pours out of me and a lot of creativity and expression, and people who know me know that I'm always doing a lot, and I have a lot on my plate all the time. So last week before last, I guess, I released the last podcast episode, and I didn't have an ebook ready to go with it. Okay. To some of you, they might not even seem like a big deal. What's the big deal? It's a little podcast. Goals are made to be, flexed, all these things. For me, it was a bit of a crisis. And I had to, it came at a time when I probably wasn't quite quite looking at all the other crises that had been piling up with much clarity. I had been kind of shuffling those as I sometimes do. I just like, out of sight, out of mind, stay focused, keep your attitude up, stay optimistic. And sometimes I don't give full presence to stressors that need my attention. And then something goes wrong and they demand to be paid attention to. So I'm not going to go into the gross details because, and gross, I just mean by volume. There's nothing nasty about it. Private life is private life. But things happened in my family, things happened in my life that prohibited the production of that ebook. And I had to sit down and strategize, like, what was this going to mean? So to me, I use a big F word when that happens. It's failure. I didn't hit a target that I had created and I had decided that it was important to me. There's lots of reasons why this is part of my psyche. And like I said, most of the time it works for me. I had to examine this. I also created a structure of accountability. So I have all these podcast episodes already recorded. They're already done. And in every single one of them, I talk about the companion guide. It pairs with the episode. And here I had this gap. And I didn't know what to do about it. My attention was needed in several other places. I didn't even have really that much time to sit and navel gaze or stroke with self-pity, any of those things. I couldn't. I just needed to accept that I needed a break and then think about it. And by think about it, it really meant don't think about it. Give myself some grace and move on and go through your days and hit your other marks and show up in the ways that other people need you to show up. And just trust it's going to take care of itself. And it did. I really had every possibility on the table, right up to, okay, you can let yourself off the hook. You don't have to do it. You can just not do the books. Every single podcast I know doesn't have an ebook. I'm doing something that I think is rewarding and important, but it's unique. And so I could just let it go away. Probably nobody is even going to notice. It's just me. It's only my thing. That didn't bring me any comfort because as creatives, we all know our things are our things. They're important to us. And I didn't want to it was too important to me to just let it evaporate and go away. So I wasn't happy with that solution. And then I thought, well, you can just take the week off and then pick back up where you were. And I thought that was going to be kind of like what I did. That's for probably 7 days. I thought that was going to be my plan. And then one day I was walking. Walking is super great for meditation. It's great for working problems out. And it's also when I do my best writing, which is inconvenient because I'm nowhere near a computer and I don't walk around with pad and paper. But I was walking and I had this idea. I was thinking there isn't a writer or creative who isn't going to be able to relate to this because it happens to all of us. I know it does. This interview that I have with Misty coming up, we talk about it. I talk about it with all my creative friends. We have ideas, we set goals, and life gets in the way. It happens. And how we beat ourselves up over it or not is something to contend with. I was filleting myself. It was ridiculous how hard I was being on myself for this project. And I'm standing in a room that is literally full of unfinished projects. And they're so important to me. On the other side of this wall is all my art. Most of it's not finished. The vast majority of it will never be finished because that wasn't the point of it. And so when I was walking, it was like, that's it. That is the point. We are not supposed to finish every creative project. Now, the irony is that epiphany led to me finishing the ebook and getting back on track. But that wasn't the agenda. The agenda was to let it be and let whatever phoenix needs to rise, let it rise. The concept of not finishing your projects is fraught with demons and old voices in your head and criticisms. I have a demon in my head, and it has a voice, the voice of someone I used to work for. And every single time I don't finish something I start, I hear that demon's voice telling me the same script over and over and over again. It's not just me being hard on myself. It's the memory of when someone was too hard on me about work that didn't need to be finished or had needed to evolve, or there was, like there's all these reasons why we don't finish or we don't stay on the same path with a project. Maybe it evolves over time. Maybe it completely morphs into something new. That if we had rigidly said, no, it has to be this thing, we break it, because rigid things break, and rigid things like expectations break. And sometimes it's really awesome when they do, because that's when the light comes through. So that was the irony of what happened to me. I was walking, I had this moment of clarity, and then boom, all these words came, tumbling out of my head in these little recesses and places where they're obviously stored, they're obviously in there. But what gets blocked is when life is big, life happens, and we can't see our way through it. And I want something to show for this time. Why do I so badly want something to show for this time? Because I feel insecure and because I feel like I have something to prove. That's why. And I have so much to show for my time. And for some reason, it's never enough. So obviously, my examination of this subject isn't done. I probably could use a therapy appointment. I would love to hear from other creatives and see if you have this problem or what you do about it, because this is really go to the mat psychology. Dealing with your insecurities, dealing with being too hard on yourself. That's the essence, right? Like we're worse on ourselves. We're harder on ourselves than other people are on us. And that's a big part of my life work, is examining that and wondering where that comes from. And I know the roots of it in my history, but it's not that way for everybody. So I would love to hear from you if you have parallel experiences or insight, or just some empathy. I would love to hear some empathy, because this was a rough ass week. It really, really was. So what this means going forward, today's ebook that pairs with this episode kind of is going to piggyback both episodes, 6 and 7, Beth and Misty, and they'll have the resources for all. It'll just be, extra big ebook. What it also means is that I am removing the expectation that every single episode will have a fresh ebook. 20 books of content, I already knew it could get redundant. So it's possible, some weeks I'm going to grab a previous ebook and maybe beef up the resources, or just put those extra resources in the blog post that goes with every episode. I'm just going to cross the bridge when I get to it. I'm going to try to take expectations off. I am starting a new full-time contract on Monday. And so my whole schedule is going to change again. My schedule already has changed a lot in the past 3 weeks. My life is very different than it has been in years. And it's pretty good stuff. It's all pretty good, but it still takes time. Good things still take time too. I have to recalibrate my screenplay goals and my novel goals. And I have an appointment I have to shift, because I planned on having my fantasy novel ready for review with my coach in 14 days. That's not going to happen. So I need to reschedule that. And it's going to be okay. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to surrender the deadlines for the next probably month or so, maybe 2 months, and just kind of feel out the new waters. And then I'll find my feet, and then I'll, crank it out again based on how I feel. I'm going to try and stay in the place of no expectations. That doesn't work great for me historically. I like expectations and deadlines, okay? And I like work. I don't do great with time off, and usually time off results in more ideas and thus more work. And I love that about myself. So I'm going to just try to put lots of love in and lots of space and air in, and let be what will be, and stay in each day. And what I know is right for this episode is that this episode has a companion guide, and the next one may or may not. So before I introduce Misty, I want to show you that the giveaway for this episode is the Weekend Book Proposal by Ryan Van Cleef. He will be on the show later in the season. I'm very excited. It was a great interview. This book is super handy when you're done with a manuscript and you're ready to get your proposal going. The title is A Beloved Misnomer. It takes more than a weekend to make a book proposal. However, when you have all the pieces and you've built your pieces out, you can then do it in a weekend. This is such a handy book. So I'm looking forward to giving a copy away. If you need a reminder, the way to win the books in the episode is to engage with the podcast on social media. Those are the lists I choose from. Okay, so Misty Wagner, she runs the Rainyday Collective podcast, and I engage with her on Instagram a lot. She's one of my favorite social media people because she is who she is, and she shows up. She shows up as herself, and her writing is so transparent and raw. I regularly stop my scroll to cry. I cannot wait for her memoir. It is, God, it's like when you talk about somebody who just like lays out the truth, that's Misty. And I loved our conversation, and here it is. Let's see where to start. So the thing that I'm most fascinated in with your work is two things: your memoir work and collectiveness, like the Rainy Day Collective. So I would love to talk about writing groups, how they're different from beta readers, what to expect, how to get in one, what you do, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
take the floor.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with what is the Rainy Day Collective, because that's how I found you.
Sure. So the Rainyday Collective is actually it started and it still is primarily a podcast. It started as an experiment. What would happen if we created this platform for women to come and share themselves authentically with no judgment, no one caring what they look like, what size they were, what they had or had not accomplished, what their relationship status was, religion, political affiliation, like nothing. Just this complete space that was really what sisterhood and womanhood was designed to look like, but we've gotten so far, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, going into it, I was so disenchanted by women in general because we're trained, right, for that. We're trained to be competitive and catty. So I really didn't think it would go well. And I wasn't sure because of that. Like they always talk about have a dream, have like this big thing that you imagine. And I couldn't bring myself to do that because I had literally zero faith that women could do it. I wanted them to, and I loved supporting women and I loved advocating for women, but I felt like in my life, I was the minority of that and that it wasn't the norm. And what ended up happening was exactly that. It became successful, and women just would rise up and love and support other women who had literally nothing in common with them outside of womanhood and embrace religious or Christian women that they wouldn't have otherwise, or Christian women embracing like the idea of loving and supporting non-Christian women. Like just there was so much division that just didn't matter anymore.
Mm.
And what that came to is then so many women were able to start seeing, wow, I have this in common with you, or oh my goodness, I feel that way too. And it's a beautiful thing. And empathy just started growing, and it has been an absolute pleasure to cultivate that community and watch that support form.
Yeah, that's what the receiving end of it feels like. I've been a little bit involved on the
Mhm.
Instagram part of it, and there's people that I know that are part of the collective that are um, they engage back and forth in a it's such a kind, respectful way, and sisterhood kind of a way. Which
Yeah.
somebody was asking me yesterday if my experience on Instagram was that everyone was selling something, and I was like, actually, no. And I think it's because of how I'm there and who I'm engaging with. It's actually really mutual and stimulating. Some of my, oh my goodness, challenging. Um, and the collective posts, I have to say, are a lot of those accounts that I'm following that I learned through the Rainy Day Collective are some of those accounts. They're
Sure.
so genuine, and I know that they all have their thing going. Everybody has their thing,
Mhm.
but it's not down your throat and
salesy. So I was like, no, I actually can't say that about Instagram. But um, I have a follow up question about it. I'm trying to think of how to word it. Um, so you have your podcast episodes, and then what comes next? Like, I know you've had some events that happen, and I know that you have a day of the week where you do something live.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's just like this ever changing, ever evolving, ever growing thing. So we will do it started a couple of years ago on Mondays. We would come together via like Instagram video, but then it has gravitated into a live where we come together for like a collective moment. And originally it was we come together to learn something from someone in our community who has like an interest or a passion or an expertise or something, whether it was like a yoga move or a workout or whatever. And then now, for whatever reason, I think just because of, the pandemic and needing connection, we just have, for the most part, started bringing guests from the episode the week before
Mhm.
on to do a live and just chat with them a little bit more. But yeah, it's just a time in our IGTV where we just can come together, but yet we're not together because some people are working and watch it later, but
Yeah,
um,
I never catch
and
lives live. It never happens.
right, it's very rare for me as well. And then on Thursdays, we started doing something on Thursdays at 8 because we just, all of us, I have a team, and we would be talking among ourselves, like in a group chat, about like, what day is it? What, because this the pandemic, right? Everything is a mess. Like, what day is it? What's happening? Is it still September? Like, no one knows. And so we started doing this is Thursday, and so we just, this is Thursday, this is the date, and then just taking 10 to 15 minutes to just connect with each other about what is happening, what is on our minds that has usually nothing to do with politics
Hmm.
or the unrest that's happening, because Thursday is like the weekend eve. We're heading into something that is supposed to be relaxing and rejuvenating, even if every day runs together. And this is that fun little distraction where we can be like, okay, we're going to think about some good things for 10 minutes, get in a better mindset together, and then we'll transition to
Yeah.
the weekend. I suggested that for me, and it actually, people have really loved it. So
Yeah, and it's really central to the whole theme of connection over division,
Mhm.
what we have in
Yes.
common. So that's really beautiful. One thing I've noticed about those posts and also some prompts you've been following is you're doing some actually really incredible writing in your captions. I don't know, I would love to hear, like, are you doubling that up somewhere? Is that in your manuscript, or what? We should probably back up. What is your bigger writing goal, bigger project? And then how does that jive with what you're doing on Instagram? Because you've brought me to tears many times in your captions, and I'm like,
Oh,
she's really like, not everybody's doing that. So it's really beautiful.
that's really sweet. Yeah, on my, not the collective Instagram so much, because that is, I'm only there once a week, but
Right.
my team is there the other days. But on my personal Instagram, I transitioned a while ago. As an author, there's they always say, whoever they are, whatever, the messages are always so much that if you follow all of their advice, you're running like a 24/7 social media account with 10 billion followers and a blog and doing this and that, and it's not, like, it's not humanly possible. It's just
Mhm.
to remain authentic and put out that volume of content, it's not possible. And so I decided a while ago that I would still maintain a blog periodically, but I needed to transition and do what is essentially microblogging on Instagram.
Mhm.
And so 4 to 6 days a week, I put like this tiny blog post on there and just try to really be real. I just that's my thing. It, as a memoirist, as just a woman helping create this community of women, I just want to be real, whether it's, calling myself out for being a piece of garbage sometimes, or, giving myself a gold star for doing something really amazing. And yeah, so I just sit there pre-coffee, which I don't know how, but I always write them pre-coffee. Um, and yeah, just wherever I'm at in that moment, which is hard because this year pre-pandemic, I really had the goal of becoming a content planner because,
Hmm.
again, that's what they say, plan your content. And I just, for me, it doesn't work. For some people, it does, and that's great. But I'm trying too hard to just to be present and genuine and authentic and in that moment. And so, how do you plan that?
I can so relate because I have this extensive Trello board. I have a love-hate relationship with Trello, and I did that, and I have a big blog post about it in, I think it was the first week of January, and I planned out my entire 2020, and that thing went out the window in March, and I know I'm like, I'm gonna revisit that at the end of this month, um, and see if maybe subconsciously I hit a few of those goals, but I haven't looked at it since we went on the first lockdown, and yeah, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. I think it's funny what you said about pre-coffee because I wonder, there's a deep authenticity in those captions. You're like really showing up for the rawness of the experience, and you're talking about some heavy subjects. And I wonder if the pre-coffee is part of it because maybe your filter is down a little bit.
Probably.
It's so accessible. That's the thing. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad because you don't know always like what the algorithm's going to show you for a day. Um,
Mhm. That's true.
yeah, they're
That's a
they're playing
mess
around with
all
us
on
a
its
little
own.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Well, and that's the other thing. They always say, like, don't pick up your phone when you're in bed. And I write it in bed. I
ah,
wake up, I wake up, grab my phone and do my post.
hmm,
And like that, I just I'm like, that's just what I do. And I've tried so hard to be like, oh, I should wake up and meditate. And I do meditate after,
right.
but I should meditate first, or I should do this first, or I should do that first. And then in the end, I'm just like, no, it's the whole point is being authentic. So I'm not going to do 45 steps to get to my authentic post. I'm going to do it like this is what I have to say right now. And maybe it's not what I thought I'd talk about yesterday, but it's where I'm at.
I think that's excellent. I had a something I was thinking when you were just talking too. It was the nebulous they that's telling us
Mhm.
what to do, and also how social media is part of being a working writer. Like you can't, whatever project you are doing, if you need to be engaged with other humans, social something is going to be involved, and then that does make it part of your work. So if you can double up your effort, or like you said, switch from a blog to a microblog on Instagram, you're going to be more effective for the time spent. And I think that's just an important point with also the 45 steps to get to the truth. Like it's really easy once you start going through all those steps for your day just gets away from you. And then even if you do sit down to write, it isn't going to be the same beautiful thing that you were going to come up with the first thing in the day. So it's really
Exactly.
nice. It looks formatted well too. So I have formatting issues on Instagram. So I'm
It's a
always like,
trick.
she's got her. I do think they just gave us line breaks. I used to have to
Oh, did they?
copy paste from other apps in order to get line
Mhm.
breaks. And I skipped it one day and I saw that mine were still intact. And so I was like, oh, maybe they fixed that stupid little bug because I hated that. Um, the
Yeah.
big blocks of text. Nobody wants to read big blocks of text, no matter what the
Right.
format is.
I know it's so hard. Now, if they would just release the freaking hashtags, then we could just go on with our writing work.
Yes. Yes. It's like always something.
Mhm.
Um, I saw how they changed the layout with the shopping and stuff, everything. And
Yeah.
I just rolled with it because it doesn't really impact my flow too much, but it gave me some heebies. And I know the
Mhm.
business model has to be a business model and all that business,
Yeah.
but Instagram's just been such a rich source
Mhm.
of connection that I'm a little bit nervous about it going away. But
Yeah. Same.
probably, you know, the way platforms go, there will be something.
Yep.
I'm not doing TikTok. Isn't happening.
I love watching them, but I'm not going to make them.
Yeah.
I
I
will watch them, and it's my favorite thing. It has been the therapy that kept me sane during the pandemic. It has
mhm.
been equal to seeing a therapist weekly, but I will not make them. That would drive
Right.
me to therapy. So I'll just enjoy other people's creativity and be inspired by them.
That's what I do. I'm so happy when people on Instagram cross post their favorite TikToks because then I feel like
Mhm.
I can watch the good ones and I don't have to actually put another app on my phone.
Yeah.
Groovy. Works.
Yep.
So let's talk about your memoir and what your
Sure.
own writing goals are.
I am writing a memoir. I feel like I've been working on it forever, but I mean, isn't that a memoir? I'm 44. I've been working on it for 44 years.
True.
Um, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It was probably the perfect and the worst project to be doing during, the apocalypse that has been happening in 2020. Um, but it's also really hard to gauge. It's different than the writing I normally do, for like as a paid writer up until this point. And it's hard to gauge goals because it's so exhausting
Hmm.
to just go back and rehash and live the things, right? And so I can't be like, oh, I have a hard goal this week to tackle, like it's an essay form to tackle like 7 essay revisions, because I could get through 1.5 and then I just need like a 5 hour nap, and I have to avoid it for 3 days
Hmm.
because it just emotionally, I have to be true to where I'm at and what I'm doing with it. And so that's been probably the biggest frustration, I think. But yeah, someday it'll be somewhere
Yeah.
in the hands of people, and I know I'm supposed to do it, so I'll do it and we'll see.
Yeah. I feel very similarly about mine. I'm still getting used to calling it a memoir because I spent probably 7 years working on it as an autobiographical novel.
Mm.
Um, Taking some advice that I'd been given that was probably a more accessible way to do it. And then I also had contributing authors, contributing experiences from other people who wanted anonymity. So fictionalizing it allowed them to do that. And then I got it all ready and tidy and ready to send out into the world, and it didn't get any traction. And the subject matter is really relevant and timely and urgent, and the title's grippy. And so I talked to a consultant, and she's like, there's not really a reason on face value why it shouldn't be getting attention. But her hunch was that because it was autobiographical novel, that a publisher doesn't know what to do with that. Do they market it as a biography or a autobiography, or do they market it as fiction? And then the subgenres of fiction. So if they can't tell from the get go what they're going to do with it, they don't have anything to do with it. So she's like, I know this is memoir. You need to own it. You need to put it in your name, which I had written it 99% absolutely true as memoir anyway. So
Mhm.
it didn't take long, basically. So that's why I have a different name now. And so we're taking another stab at it. But this has been a hard year to go back into the closets and dark spaces. And I'm ready to have it off my plate. I think nobody talks about the toll memoir takes um, in the reliving, and also like the parallel conviction that there's benefit to be gained in telling it. I feel really strongly these stories need to be told because there's power in releasing, shedding light in those spaces. It's going to help someone. And what I know of your story, yes, I mean there are women who need to hear this. They're suffering in silence without it, and they're lonely, and your story is going to open that up. So, but it's expensive. It's an expensive toll on the writer for sure. And then you
Yes.
put us through 2020, and we're all
Yeah.
shaking.
Exactly. I think had it been a different, which I mean, it comes down to me, right? Because I wrote and freelance for PR in the entertainment industry for years and years and years.
Mhm.
And it's a lot easier to not focus on this memoir that sits dangling, work done periodically while I'm doing that, because that's a paycheck.
Mhm.
And my hours on a memoir isn't a paycheck. And
Right.
so it's a lot easier to just do that. And then as we entered 2020, I was like, this is my year. This is my year. I'm not taking any external jobs. I'm just going to focus on my book. And then I took a couple, and then the pandemic hit and my industry dried up. And
Right.
so I was like, well, okay, this is the time. But just being an empath, like just emotionally, there's so much this year that I don't, it's hard because it takes a lot of restraint. I don't want to pour that perspective and that emotional energy into the project.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm still going to be absorbing what's in the project. And it just, yeah, you reach a point where your spirit is like, dude, I cannot take anything else right now. You need to stop. Because it
Yeah.
feels almost masochistic and
True.
you
Yes.
can't, yeah.
Yeah. And people who don't get it ask those questions, and I don't have answers.
Yeah.
It's not really always enough to say, well, I feel like I'm supposed to. I feel, like, why? There's
Mhm.
something wrong with that. But you press on, keep going. One thing I like is when a little burst of writing will come out, and it's like gets me the next little step, and then other things come in. I want to shift gears for a little bit though, because I didn't
Sure.
know you did PR entertainment writing. So that's an
Mhm.
awesome way to be a working writer as far as
Yes.
getting opportunities. And um, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is when your job can work in the same pull in the same direction as your passion.
Mhm.
So tell me more about what that was like, how you found jobs, what you liked about it, didn't like about it, all that.
Yeah, I started as a way back in like 2001, which it feels weird to be like that was so long ago, but it was. So way back in like 2001, the internet was still what a toddler at that point, and online magazines were a new thing. And I was a pretty strong, I mean, I'm still a practicing Christian, but it's just different. Like all of that has changed so much for good reason. But at the time I was still pretty churchy, I guess would be the term. And this publication crossed my path like, hey, you love movies, and this place here from your old home area is looking for a Christian film critic. What do you think? And I was like, oh my gosh, it was me for me.
Mhm.
And so I did it for years, and I really liked it. And then it opened up other opportunities. Like I would go, depending on where I lived, we move around a lot. I would go to a junket here, or I would go to like a producer meeting there or whatever, which then would just introduce me to like PR firms.
Mhm.
And so then, they'd have my number, they'd have my email address, and they'd be like, hey, if we have anything. And so then I was traveling, I was going to LA, or I was going to New York, or I was going to places and doing things um, just with PR companies or producers or occasionally like stars of the films. And it was really fun. Like that part was really fun. It was really exciting, but also it took its toll on my love of movies. And
Oh,
so it really, being a critic is hard. It's that thing that you just don't think about. Like I'm an Enneagram 4, and so I love the visualization of things. I love art. I love moving art. I love the cinematic picture that you can see and feel, and just, how it stimulates your brain and it moves your emotions. Like I love the engaging experience of all of that. But all of a sudden, when you're looking for things to criticize, anytime in life we're looking for something to criticize, it's going to be there.
yeah.
And so pretty soon, like I was the worst person to go to the movies with for all of my friends and family. And I was incapable of watching something without being like, "Did you see the editing is blah blah blah," and just terrible. Like I felt like I had to really rehabilitate myself from that for a few years after, like just realizing I can't do this anymore. I need to move away from that. But I still continued to work with the PR company connections that I had made to just do press releases and like junket interviews and stuff like that. I just wasn't film critiquing anymore because that was terrible.
Yeah. So how I hear that strain of your name getting passed around, and it's kind of who you know gets you
Mhm.
those kinds of gigs. Is there a way people could start out with that now that you are aware of?
I don't know. I Over the last few years, I had really tapered down what I was doing, which I mean, the industry right now, I don't even know what's going to
Right.
happen. But
Even making things.
yeah, it's bad. But Um, it became, because everything evolves and it was different. Like it definitely had changed. And so I just stuck with like the people I knew.
Yeah.
And sometimes it felt like a dog like begging for scraps. Like, do you have anything? Do you have anything? I'll write up that weird special on CNN. I'll do anything. Or
Mhm.
I'll take that weird History Channel thing on Moses. Like
Right.
really the things nobody wants. I'll do it. But um Yeah, and then I haven't really had anything since March was my last thing, and
Mm.
it just which it's okay too. I'm in a place where I'm like, it's okay to kind of be done with that.
Yeah, I like how those circles, that's how I think of my career, is circles. They come to closing points,
Yeah.
and it is kind of like it is well with my soul kind of a thing. Like I'm all right with that.
Mhm.
I just left my primary contract gig and it was full time and I liked it and I loved everybody I worked with and I was expecting to stay long term with it and then it abruptly ended the beginning of
Mhm.
November. And I had also kind of seen the writing on the wall with it and had been in that place before. So I really, my writing found traction when blogging was brand new. And I
Right.
just got some great opportunities because I was in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Mm.
And then the internet evolved and time changed and it closed, you know. So the more you have a mature career, the more you understand those times come. And is it a swing curveball? I still didn't turn my notifications off. Is it a curveball? Yes, it is. But also, I was just ready to grow a little bit, you know, do
Mhm.
something different. So who knows what's going to happen with the entertainment industry? I'm chomping for some new movies, but I also understand why they want to wait for a studio
Yeah.
release. I mean, makes sense, but
Yeah. It's a complicated thing, and so often like one thing that I'm really grateful for my experience is that I have a deep empathy for um the production of a project.
mm,
And so often, especially, I can only speak from the American perspective because that's what I know, but so often people see like the big names as the big money makers, or hear that a movie in its opening weekend grossed like $41 million or whatever, or had a budget that is just astronomical money we can't fathom, and nobody really can comprehend the thousands of people that work on a movie. The
mhm.
the majority of the people are just taking home a paycheck like everyone else, and it's feast or famine. They work or they don't, and like those people aren't working right now. And it's really, it isn't like we think it is. We love to like to spotlight these celebrities that we love to hate, right? We worship them or we abhor them, and
Mhm.
it just is not, it's just not like that. And I think that's one equalizer about the pandemic that I really liked are the celebrities that we automatically assumed were like living life large start doing these Zoom chats and these Zoom interviews, and you look at their house behind them and you're like, that looks like my house.
That's pretty
Like
normal.
I yeah, that's weird. I ate a cup of soup for, or a cup of noodles for lunch too, just like they did. And like it's having that window and that like ability to realize humanity is a good healthy thing. And I love movies still. I don't know that I want to go back to the movie theater just because I don't know if they're going to fare very well, but I would like to see more being done just because I know there's so many people out of work, especially like with Broadway and theater, and that opens up a
Mhm.
whole other realm of things. It's just a sad time.
It is sad. I am a natural born hermit. And so a lot of the side effects of 2020 I haven't really had a problem with.
Sure.
I I like being well rested. I liked not having a commute. I like having no social obligations. But I miss things like our we have an art movie theater that shows
Mhm.
all kinds of, you know, stuff that's not going to go to the multiplex. I miss
Right.
going there. I miss restaurants because we don't do restaurants either. I mean, I know a lot of people do, but I'm like crowds. Like I'm not a great crowd person on a normal year. This year, definitely not.
Right.
But when I think of like, oh, all of Broadway is shut down, and then I think about college students, they're taking all their courses online. Like the formative experiences that are part of our culture, like knowing that they're going to come back is it's just sad. It's just,
It is.
you know, kids coming of age without like Hamilton was just a big thing. Like everybody was going to Hamilton and it was just getting ready
Mhm.
to come down here where the plebes could go and there's no shows.
I know it's so sad. And again, like or even like local community theaters. Like it has impacted so many people. And I've heard those those people who have been really unsupportive of many pandemic things, like masks and normal things. They it's just, why do we care about shallow stuff like the entertainment? And it's like, because again, these are people's livelihood.
Yeah.
Not everyone is Meryl Streep. Like,
Right.
some people need a paycheck. Some people have house payments and need to put food on the table just like the rest of us. And especially when it comes to, like, I here locally, we know several community theater members who, like, that's their income. That's their source of income. And now what do they have? Because it's not like there's this plethora of jobs waiting for them.
Right.
It just, yeah, it's
And their skill set, and I mean, I guess
right.
deliver food, but not everybody's gonna go deliver food. That's
Right.
makes my soul sad just thinking
Mhm.
about it.
I
Um,
know.
I had a question. It just poofed. Oh, the humanities. I was thinking about. These fields we're talking about are also the humanities that help expand
Mhm.
our empathy for one another and let each other into their experiences. We watched Normal People on Hulu
Mhm.
recently. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, we loved how just low key it was. It was just these two people figuring out life in this dance with each other. Um, and it occurred to me that's like a small scale production. Maybe we'll see more of that. Sarah Paulson has a movie out right now called Run. And from, I haven't seen it yet, but what I've heard is that it was also a small production, small set, small cast. So maybe we'll see art. I believe art finds a way. Like, so
Absolutely.
we're going to see something. Um,
Absolutely. And that, like, that comes, I mean, really full circle back to TikTok. And we talk about TikTok a lot on our show, but it existed before the pandemic. But then the pandemic, I really believe, kind of exploded it into what it is, because it gave the opportunity for people to channel their anxiety and their struggle, during a really hard time, in this creative way. And it just, we we will watch it. My husband and I will just like mirror it up on our TV, and we'll just sit there and watch it, and we are blown away by how absolutely creative
yeah.
we are as people, and just things we've never thought of. We're just like, oh my gosh, how did this person like think of that? And it just has brought about this beautiful connection of like a mental health community. And it is it is exactly, you're exactly right. Like, art thrives and art survives, and it changes and it grows. And that is the one thing that has like helped me realize that we will be okay. We
Hmm.
don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how it's going to look, but all of the things that matter the most will be there in some way. And I mean, they're not like they were 20 years ago, even with blogging, like you mentioned. Like, I
Right.
got in on the early blogging thing, and it would pay my house payment.
Hmm.
And like, not now.
Right.
It doesn't. Every time I'm on Pinterest and I see like how to become a 10K blogger, a 1 month 10K blogger, and I'm just like,
Uh-huh.
it's not even possible. It's,
Not even
unless
like
you're a
that anymore.
celebrity, yeah, you can't do that. So yeah, things change and evolve, but it will be okay.
What also came through there when you were talking was the openness to technology, how
Mhm.
essential it is, because we were able to be, I guess my son calls them, what does he call them? OGs, original
Oh,
something. Yeah, because we're there, and we're not afraid of it. We're not
mhm.
vilifying it as a format. My reticence to TikTok isn't because I'm afraid of it. It's
Sure,
I'm kind of overwhelmed at how much energy it takes because
sure.
I'm already very present on Instagram, and I feel
Mhm.
like I got enough juice for one platform,
Mhm.
maybe half of another, but I'm picky. Um, but that said, I know amazing content is being generated there, and it's not fluffy. It's not all fluffy. There's mental health
Oh
professionals
yeah.
on there, and there's all kinds of stuff happening, and that's going to go somewhere. That's through the velocity of creativity is going to create
Mhm.
something. So
Yeah.
people who are there and who are not afraid of it and who are willing to learn new things will always have a job. because they'll make one, they'll find one, or
Exactly.
they'll network or something. I mean, it'll happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very cool. One more question that we didn't hit was beta readers. I don't know why I don't, it doesn't sound like you're ready for a beta reader yet on your project. I don't know why I had it on the list necessarily. Um, I think I had you down for writers groups. Where am I getting that from? Is that from a thing, or do you think I was just making an association?
I have a writers group,
You
so
have a writers
maybe.
group. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, maybe that. Tell me about your writers group. I'm going to
Um,
severely edit that intro, by the way.
yeah. Oh no, that's fine. I like organic conversation. It is a exclusive. Sounds like a weird word to use, especially as an Enneagram 4, but it's a private group. And every 6 months I open it to bring in new blood or whatever. But it's a paid writers group,
Hmm.
and we workshop things, and we have free writes, and just a really tight, supportive community. Um, Hash out ideas, get feedback. It's a beautiful thing, and um, get to give money to a charity as well.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's a really lovely thing. So
What does the format of it look like? Are you using formats or Zooms or
we
email?
do Zoom. We do Zoom,
Hmm.
and we do 3 hours between two sessions of like writing and feedback time a
Hmm.
week. And then once a month we have a 2 hour workshop.
Nice. Who leads that?
So far me with um yeah, input. I'm really playing off of the verb workshop, like here's some things, but then we're going to workshop through this together and come up with
Mhm.
different perspectives. I really value perceptions of other people and being exposed to that. I think it makes us better in our craft, and so
Cool
yeah.
group. Do you read each other's writing? Finished stuff then?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool.
It's yeah, it's pretty good. And
Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say regarding beta readers, I just released a small like workbook project
Hmm.
um today actually. Um and I did have that beta read, but it was little. So
Yeah. I love having beta readers. I feel like it's a way to include people that aren't necessarily writers but want to be supportive. Um, and it's a good way to get some raw feedback. It's funny to me. I have learned the hard way to gather twice as many beta readers as I want opinions, because only half of them are going to get back to me. They're not going to all finish. Sometimes their feedback is going to be, "Oh yeah, I liked it," or "Oh no, I didn't." And then other times I'll hit a beta reader that's like practically an editor, line by line. This is what I like. This is where I was confused. This is where I got lost. But I haven't articulated it all out yet. But I want to draw a distinction between the expectations of what people call those kinds of readers, because there is a difference in, like, for instance, there's multiple kinds of editors, and people will say,
mhm.
do you have an editor? And it's like they don't know if they're talking about a developmental editor or a line editor or a copy editor. And a reader is not, there's paid readers, and then there's your friend the
Right.
beta reader, and then there's groups where you're actually feeding off each other content, and then there's also groups where if you interact and critique someone, they'll get really offended because that isn't what they thought they were there for. So
Right.
those expectations are, I think, worth sitting down and figuring out, but maybe a show topic. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last time I was in a writer's group, that is what happened. I got bit pretty hard, and I'm sure it was my own expectation problem, in that I thought we were there to like exchange writing and give critical feedback.
Hmm.
And I have honed my constructive criticism skin, like I got a really thick, tough one, and I want feedback that's going to make the piece stronger and doesn't bother me. And I did that for someone else whose constructive criticism skin had not toughened up. So even though I don't think I was mean, um, they were really blown back, and our group kind of disbanded. She was writing really precious material, and that's what she wanted to do, and I didn't realize that that's what she wanted to do. And so I think I was misfit for the group. So I mean, group chemistry is
Mhm.
also probably part of it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm a big believer in energy, and I really enjoy like our time as a group, even though we're on Zoom spanning the country. I love that we can all come together and be writing, even if it's completely silent, for this chunk of time twice a week. And just the energy is crazy. We always talk about how we just get more done, just more focused, get more done. I really obviously believe in the power of story and the power of community. Like those I really think are, as women, are superpowers. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's every time I sit down and do that, I'm just like, yep, this is it. This is why, for whatever reason, why I'm here. So
That's so cool. So I just got a visual when you were talking. So are you guys not working on the same project, like a prompt? You're all working on your own
no,
stuff?
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Like I can see how
yeah,
that would be like this big energetic like orb
mm,
over
yep,
you. All that
yeah.
collective, like a snow globe
Mhm.
over you.
Yeah,
That's
and then we
incredible.
talk about it and just like hash through it, talk about what we're working on and our wins and our concerns and how to support each other. And yeah,
Wow.
it's
That's awesome. So, let's see, what else? Have we not covered anything? I'm really grateful we got to do this.
me too.
It's been, so I had this idea for this podcast a year ago. It was called the Writer's Problems Podcast. And I did all kinds of like initial setup for it, but then I got that other gig and it was a full-time gig and I knew I didn't have um, a decent amount of time to give this a serious effort.
Mhm.
So I set it aside. Oh, I hope you can't hear that because then it will be on the mic. Did you just hear my husband?
I did.
Okay. I'll have to edit that. I keep telling them I'm recording, be quiet, but they don't get the memo. What was I saying? Oh, podcast. And so then um, I had this time right when the job ended, and I was like, "Well, I'm going to pick that back up." And I just twerked the name a little bit. Once I said working writer, it was like the clouds parted and all these ideas came in, and then I had like instantly 20 interviews I wanted to do, and every single person said yes, and two of those are teams of at least 5 people. So that's a lot of yeses to get in a week.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, God, goddess, universe, life force, everything I want to call you, I'm gonna go
Mhm.
through it. And it's intimidating because I've never been on this side of the microphone or this side of the camera before. I've always been
It's
behind
so
the
fun
scenes.
though.
I'm finding that
Yeah.
I didn't think I would be. I have to make peace with this thing. One of my guests had this really cool headset that had a microphone, like
Mhm.
a gaming thing, that I thought, well, that's probably what I should have bought. But I got what my kid told me to buy, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm doing it, doing the thing. And then my big idea, I call it my big idea. It might not be big to anyone else, but it's big to me. Is that every episode is going to pair with its own ebook, and the ebook's monetized. Like it's not going to be a free ebook, but it's going to
Sure.
pair with the subject matter. Because one of my big convictions is like don't work for free, and podcasts are a ton of content and a ton of work, and you can't monetize every little bit of it because that's gross. But I need something of value to reflect the time and investment and love and energy and everything I'm putting into it. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. Bravo for that, because that's one of the things that, again, with our weird mentality, we think automatically like, oh, you have a podcast, especially if you run a podcast that has ads, people automatically assume you're raking in the dough. And it's like, no, I don't even break even,
Hmm.
but I do it because I love it. And if you are starting a podcast because you want to get rich, you are not to be happy with the results.
Right? Good luck with that.
Yeah, you have
While
to
you're sick of
love
them.
the experience. Exactly.
Yeah. It's all like multiple streams of income, I guess, we'll get you there. But the other thing I had was I wanted a catalog of books. I want to have some nonfiction presence. And every writer I know, I don't think I know a working writer that doesn't do a little of both. Like they've got,
Yep.
they're doing their straight on gig, but then they've got even Stephen King has on writing, they
Yep.
all have something about their craft. And so this is going to be my log in the fire, my little donation
I
to the
love
pot.
it.
And
Yeah.
and I'm capping it at 20 right now because I know some podcast projects go on eternally, but I need a boundary. I love boundaries. And so 20
Me
is
too.
my boundary, and I will reevaluate after 20. So
That's how I am with every season. And as I near the end of a show season, I'm like, I don't know, this might be the last season. It might be time for something else. And then it ends and there's that weird little time afterwards that I'm like, no, this has more life in it. So
that
yeah,
speaks to
I
the
get that.
importance of rest and taking
Yes.
breaks. Yeah. So you have something to talk about. Not
Absolutely.
machines that just keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's cool. We're both Enneagram 4s. What are your Myers-Briggs letters?
I always forget them because they remind me of an algebra problem because it's just so
Naturally
many
repellent.
letters. Yeah, I don't like my brain doesn't do that stuff. It's like an ENFJ maybe.
Yeah, that's what I am. That's why I wondered. I'm an INFJ, but I consider myself an E-I because I can be extroverted and enjoy being extroverted with intention, but I'm going to
Mm,
naturally recharge my batteries as a wholehearted introvert. So,
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's like ENFJ or something like that. I need it to spell a word.
Hmm.
I need it to be like an acronym for an actual word. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm a globe or I'm a rose or whatever. That's why I can remember Enneagram 4 because it makes sense.
Yeah.
But the random letters, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm just
Yeah,
like, I don't
that's true.
remember that.
For years, I used to have a friend tell me what mine were because she was good at remembering those things and I wasn't. And then I was
I
like,
need
"Oh,
that
yeah,
friend.
you're introverted, you're intuitive, you're judgy." Oh, and feeling. Yeah, F is the feeling
Mhm.
part. So, I don't know, something about getting my Enneagram number helped me remember my Myers-Briggs. I don't know why it worked
Interesting.
that way, but it took that. It took
Yeah,
knowing I was a 4 to understand the Myers-Briggs.
sure. That makes sense. I think like the title for mine is like the adventurer,
Oh,
something like
maybe.
that.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
mine.
I don't I don't know. Enneagram 4. I
It's
feel
all another
things
way to say
deep.
I'm empathic and sensitive, and I follow my gut. That's
Yep, exactly. Although on an Enneagram, I do wing 5, so I'm also like a research queen, which is super
Mhm.
helpful.
I am not that. I admire that. The world needs. I had a coworker at my last project who's a research queen, and I was like, "Wow, I would be superwoman if I was good at that. It'd be great." But I'm not. My attention span is the size of a gnat, so it doesn't work.
Yeah, that can hinder it.
I hope you loved that. We got into so many topics that I hadn't planned, and I'm not going to be too picky about the editing. I'm going to let it be because, as Misty said, she's such a good influence on me. Organic conversations are where it's at, and real conversations have bumbles. So I'm going to let some of those things slide and like be okay with it not being perfect. So awesome. The winner of the weekend book proposal is Sarah Bradley, writer. So I will message you on Instagram and let you know. I hope you love your copy and I hope it results in a book for you. It's really, really handy. Okay, guys, I'm going to see you episode 8. I guess when I see you. It's still scheduled for every other Wednesday, but que sera. We'll see how it goes.